Hi, it's Wanda from Alanda Craft, and this is part 2 of our xTool screen printer review and demonstration. Now, in our previous video, we showed you our first attempt at using the xTool screen printer, and in that video we went through on how to set it up, how to attach a screen to a frame, and how to engrave a design, and how to create a project using one colour. Now in this video, we're going to show you two methods for making designs using multiple colours. For the first method, we're going to be using some cardstock, so you can see that I'm peeling off the protective plastic on the sticky mat and laying down a piece of 65-pound cardstock. Then I place my screen into the machine and lock it in using the levers at the top. We're going to be using the same gnome design that we used in the first video, but this time with multiple colours. Now push the frame down and tighten it using the hand wheel on the side. Now I'm adding some paint, and in this case I'm adding way too much, but this was our first attempt at adding multiple colours, so I wasn't too sure how much I needed. Now it's time to use the squeegee, and you can see there's a lot of excess paint. When we lifted up the screen we didn't really like the yellow effect, it was too in your face, so we swiped back in the opposite direction and I think it came out a lot better. Not bad for a first attempt. Now for our second attempt we went with some white cotton fabric. The sticky mat is great for this, as you can smooth it down and it'll all stay in place perfectly. This time we just wanted to try two colours, and again I've applied too much paint, but I like the result apart from the yellow at the top of the hats. So we thought we might add some other colours to it, but we got to a point where we should have stopped, but I actually didn't mind the final result. For the third attempt, we used some of the blue paint mixed with some silver glitter paint, and yet again there was too much paint, but we do get better at this as we go. Now I didn't mind the result on this, but I wanted the blue to be mixed with the silver glitter, so back with a squeegee, and I think I prefer this result, and when it dries the glitter is more intense. And here are some of our other attempts. We ended up adding less paint and started to move the squeegee from side to side, put a little wiggle on it to get the paint to blend a little better. Of course, the more we practice, we'll get a better handle of blending colours and the results will get a lot better. For the second method, we are going to be using 3 screens since we'll be working with 3 different colours. Now we've showed you how to attach the screens to the frames in the first video, so I'll put a link to that video in the description field below. I'm taking the first screen and placing it into our laser engraver. We're using the xTool D1, and it has an adapter that came with the screen printer that ensures everything is lined up nicely when doing this type of multicoloured screen printing. And you can check out the first video to see this in more detail. Now we just need to bring up our image into the software. You can use xTool Creative Space for this, but we're going to be using Lightburn as it seemed to work a little better for the older xTool D1 machine that we have. You can see here that I have imported my image, and the first thing we need to do is separate this out into different layers based on what colours we are going to be using. So I'm holding down the Shift key on my keyboard and selecting the reindeers, the Merry and Special Delivery text, and the line of wording at the bottom. To change the colour, I just click on one of the colours at the bottom of the screen. You'll notice that as I do that, a new layer is created in the Layers panel. I'm going to leave the word Christmas in black, as well as the outline around the name, and then I'll click on Aurelia and change that to a different colour as well. Now you can see that we have 3 different layers and they're all set to fill, and now we need to select our settings. Now since we're using the xTool D1, we're going to go with a speed of 59mm per second and a power of 64% for each of the 3 layers. Now if you're using a different machine, your settings may be different, so just be aware of that and do a test. Now I'm going to group everything together because I want to rotate this design so it sits facing towards the top of my screen. Now because the image contains words, I'm going to come up to the Arrange option and select Flip Vertical. Now if you don't do this, the words will be in the wrong direction when you turn the screen over to do the screen printing of the design. Now we need to make sure that the design is going to engrave in the correct position on the screen, so I'll click the frame button, and you can see that the machine will show you where the image is going to be engraved. Now you can move the image around in the software as often as needed and keep pressing the frame option until you have it sitting just where you want it. We're now ready to start engraving, and because we are engraving 3 different colours, we need to make sure we engrave each coloured layer onto a different screen. So we'll start with the name first, which means we'll need to stop the other layers from being sent to the laser, and in order to do that we click the output option against each layer. And you can also click the show option as well to stop it displaying on the screen. It just makes it a little clearer to see exactly what is going to be engraved. Now we're ready to start engraving, so just click the start button and away it goes. You can see how it engraves the surface of the screen without cutting through it, and it did a beautiful job. Now once the first design has finished engraving, we remove the frame from the laser engraver and attach the second frame. And back in the software, we're going to hide the name because we've already engraved it, and then unhide the next layer that we want to engrave. And in this case, it is the word Christmas and the frame. And then we click Start. So again, it goes ahead and engraves the next layer. And once it's done, we'll remove that screen and we'll replace it with the next one. And again, we repeat the process in the software. So we hide the layer we just engraved and unhide the last layer that needs engraving and click Start. And once we've completed the final layer, we can remove it and we're ready to move on to the fun part. So I've gone ahead and added some fabric to the sticky mat, and this is calico, or you might know it as muslin. And I'm also attaching the first screen and lowering it to sit on top of the fabric. Now I'm ready to add the paint, and I'm going to use black for the name and just run the squeegee down, and as you can see it came out a little patchy, so I went over it again and this time it came out great. So I removed the screen and left it to dry before going on to the next step. Now you can use a hairdryer to speed up the drying process, but we just fanned it with a piece of card and it was dry enough within about 15 minutes or so. Now it's also important to note here that you don't want to remove the fabric or move it around, as it needs to stay in the exact same position so that everything lines up nicely for the next 2 layers. Now once it's dry, we can remove the screen and add the next one. Now for this layer we're using green, which we made by combining some of the blue and yellow that we received with our screen printer. And you can see it came out a little bit patchy on the first swipe, so I went ahead and did a second time, and that came out a lot better. And you can see how we speed up the drying process by waving around a piece of card. So now we can remove that screen and add the last one. And for this layer I'm going to use red, although it looks more like a pink, but fortunately it did dry into more of a red colour. And after adding too much paint every other time, this time I didn't add enough, so I repeated the process and it came out beautifully. And here's the final result. I'm super pleased with how it looks, and if you want to learn how to sew up the bag, check for a link in the description field below. Well, that was a lot of fun, and we'd like to thank xTool for giving us the opportunity to test their screen printer. It was a lot easier than we thought it was going to be, and this is a real game changer for anyone who's ever wanted to get into the hobby of screen printing. It'd be an ideal business starter as well, and it would make a fantastic gift. Now, I'm a real fan of xTool products. We already have 3 of their lasers, and each one is unique in its capabilities, and they're always extremely well made and easy to work with. We'll be creating more videos for the screen printer in the future over on our laser channel, and I'll add a link to that channel in the description field below. So thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.